Welcome back to Watchtime, your weekly download on everything internet pop culture. Today, I am excited for this episode. Guys, there has been some juicy stuff happening this week, and I am so excited to unpack it.
Podcast drama!
Talking drama, and it's the Call Her Daddy drama, which you may or may not have seen sort of taking over the internet today. And this, I think, is just literally the perfect story to come out after the podcast topic that we were speaking about last week, which was all about exposure contracts and negotiations and that sort of thing, because this is all of that in real life. And the candid, I don't know what the word is, but the honesty that has come out around this story is so crazy. I think it's something you very rarely get to see the inner workings of. And it just so happens that shit has hit the fan so much that people are giving details that you would never usually get to see. So I'm so excited to break this down. Elliot,
and I'm now obsessed with the CEO of Barstool Esports. Or just Barstool in general.
Barstool Sports.
Barstool Sports. They have Barstool Esports now, though. They did make that division, I'm pretty sure. But long story short, I love him. I'm sure he's done some horrible, controversial things. He definitely seems like that guy. But man, I could listen to him talk for like 6 hours about anything. He's fantastic.
And this is the kind of situation where it's like, if you're part of it, this is probably an absolute shit show and you're hating it and can't wait for it to be over. But if you're not part of it and you don't have to deal with the stress of actually going through this contract stuff, it's pretty
beautiful.
Fascinating. It's actually fascinating. So I'm going to break it down. And basically there's another podcast that you can go listen to after this, but we're going to give you all the TLDR that you need to know.
The TLDR with the T.
So basically, Call Her Daddy is a wildly popular podcast. It's one of the most popular podcasts in the world. It's the most popular female podcast in the world. And basically, Call Her Daddy is a podcast by two girls that live in New York. It's a sex and relationships podcast. And it was picked up by Barstool Sports after they had only done 3 episodes. So they did 3 episodes independently, not with any support. Dave Portnoy, who is the president of Barstool Sports, which is a massive media conglomerate now. I think they're valued at like $450 million or something. They have a huge podcasting business, picked it up, and were basically like, hey girls, we love the premise of your podcast. Come put it under the Barstool banner. We will blow it up through our sales and marketing machine, and we will pay you guys a salary. So these girls previously were doing this on the side. They were then able to quit their jobs and go work for Barstool as employees and do their podcast, for which they would also get bonuses if the podcast episodes performed particularly well. They joined Barstool, and the podcast, I think, probably blew up beyond anyone's expectation of how big it could get. It was colossal in growth. And about a year in, they wanted to renegotiate the contracts. I think their boss, Dave, was like, fair enough. Yep, it's completely overperforming. And if you're a boss and someone is bringing you in that much value, generally you don't have an issue renegotiating because it's doing well. And if they're doing well, you're doing well, it's a win-win for everyone. And the podcast was bringing in so much value that it was 100% worth it. Then things started to get a little sour. So when Barstool acquired the podcast, they also acquired the IP, the intellectual property, which basically means they own Call Her Daddy. It's not possible for the girls to go and use the name Call Her Daddy to go and do anything else, whether that's selling merch, doing individual sponsorships, creating a tour, selling alcohol, which turned out to be a crux of the issue.
Which, to be fair, is a small break, is, in my opinion, fair enough to ask for.
Fair enough.
When you're going to partner with someone to build a brand. I mean, sure, you could have structured it in a way where it's a percentage either way. That would be the one point I could have made. But otherwise, like, what's the value in you investing in a brand that currently is worth nothing, trying to build it into something over 3 years if at the end of that 3 years you don't have it? So, yeah. Anyway, shoot.
Totally. So this all starts to come to a head a couple months ago, and the girls are clearly unhappy in their contract. They start sort of leaving hints in their podcast episodes that they're not happy, or that they're, you know, like starting a hashtag like free the fathers or whatever. Like they need to be released from something that's like completely restrictive. And basically they go to their boss and ask for $1 million each minimum guarantee for the next year. They ask for 50-50 on all sales associated with the podcast or the Call Her Daddy brand, where previously they were probably getting somewhere between like 7 and 10%. And they ask for the IP back. They want to own it. And they don't want to be employees anymore. They want to be individual contractors. This is a pretty hefty list of demands by anyone's standards, I think. And basically this pissed off Dave so much that he was like, go away. No,
yeah,
absolutely not. Like, no. It got to the point that they were going to be that difficult that they were going to stop recording the podcast. And as of now, they haven't recorded a podcast since the start of April, I believe. And
which is dumb.
Basically, which is not a good move. So now they're also in breach of their employee contracts with Barstool. And it has sort of been leaked across the internet, different articles. They leaked their own employee contracts allegedly that said that they were being paid $75,000 a year USD plus $2,500 per episode. That was, you know, an increase in their average viewership, which, you know, that's not a bad salary for someone that was working a part-time job a year before. But to be fair, if you can do basic maths, you know the podcast was bringing in way more than that. And personally, I think if they were making that much, they would have been within their right to renegotiate. Dave then released the actual numbers that they'd been paid, which were in the realm of $500,000 each, which is pretty crazy for your first year. Your first year, that's a lot of money. That's a lot. But I think what we want to get into now is, the thoughts on that. The additional tea is the fact that one of the host's boyfriends was apparently really being a major player behind the scenes here. And basically what was actually happening was they were shopping around the podcast. So they would have been going to other networks, seeing if they could get a better deal.
Trying to shop around a podcast that, legally speaking, on paper, they don't own. Like, they signed the IP. That's like one of you having a really nice car and me being like, oh, that's a sick Ferrari you've got there, Dave. I'm going to go and take that out and try and sell it. And it's like, wait, what? You don't, that's not your, you can't sell that. That's mine. That's essentially what they were doing.
Exactly. Which is really bad faith, for one. They could have gone to another network and perhaps started another podcast under a different name. They wouldn't be able to name it Call Her Daddy. But they're also in employment contracts for 3 years. So it's
and there would be non-competes in there. They couldn't go and do a podcast that's the same style without running into some serious problems.
Absolutely not. And to sort of muddy the waters further, one of the host's boyfriends is an executive at HBO, and he was allegedly the one pulling strings and shopping it around, effectively acting as a manager, to the point that he was able to procure a deal from Wondery, which is another big podcast network. This comes with its own issues that I am very excited to get into later. But basically, Elliot, what was your take on the podcast?
I mean, look, number one, I absolutely love the CEO of Barstool. Like, his episode where he's just like, look, I'm gonna lay out the facts. Like, people have called me an asshole quite a bit, but they've never called me a liar. This is what happened. And he basically just flat puts it out there. And honestly, like, he comes across as someone who, I think what he said was the facts. I very much believe him. Do I think that, that I can understand why there's stress on both sides, but ultimately, I don't think Barstool is in the wrong at all. I think that they found some people who they thought had potential. There's no way you can find the most talented person in the world and you can be like, obviously you have potential. You can never predict a blow up to the scale that, you know, it sounds like these girls have had. Once again, didn't actually follow them, but now I'm catching up on it all. I'm loving it. And I think that it's something you see all the time in kind of like those talent relate, like these kind of contracts, right? Where it's kind of like a project that you might be trying to do solo, but you've realized that if you partner with a company, you can accelerate it. You find a company takes a pitch on you, and it goes one of two ways a lot of the time. And I feel like both ways, someone's normally at least a little bit unhappy. Either A, it underperforms, in which case the company is now paying you and the talent's like, great, I've got this thing that didn't actually end up working out, but now I've got a guaranteed salary. Or it ends up blowing up, in which case it makes huge money, but now but now the talent's like, oh man, now I'm having to sign off 50% of my revenue to this company. And
but that's
like
a bet you take.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally like you betting on the horses and then you win the bet and the bookie's like, wait, but I don't want to pay you out. You know, it's like you took a gamble.
Yeah.
Sometimes the gamble pays off. Sometimes it doesn't. When you win, you take your wins. When you lose, you take your loses. It is a gamble.
That's a good analogy.
But I think that where it gets like even more toxic and where I really think, especially when you hear this story play out, the only thing that will send a relationship like that south faster than the revenue being really high and the base contract amount being low. And it does sound like Barstool was getting pretty good off this, which they are more than entitled to do after taking that bet.
They did. They estimated that the podcast was making $100,000 per episode. So they're probably
ad revenue. So that's $5 million a year, and that's not even including where the majority of their revenue would come from. Would be probably like merch sales. They're starting an alcohol brand. So let's like ballpark $10 million a year, and they were paying like $1 million to the girls for actually being the talent on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind though, there's a lot of TV shows out there, a lot of things that make huge amounts of money where the faces of that show make a fraction of that thing's total revenue. That's not totally out there. But anyway, long story short, what I was going to say was where that relationship will go south so much faster is when you have two people or when you have a group of people who are in that talent side of the business. Because normally you'll be like, you could be in a situation where you're like, okay, like, this isn't like totally ideal. I guess like this could be better, that could be better. But when you have like multiple people in that position, like people will start being like, oh yeah, what about that? And then that person will be like, yeah, actually you're right. And then be like, oh, I'm so glad you think I'm right because I was thinking that too. And then like it creates this feedback loop and it keeps going back and back and back and back and back. And it just builds up and up and up and up and up, even though to a point, some of the concerns could have been justified. But I feel like when you get that collective group kind of, you know, it's like a lot of the time when like everyone does it with their friends. I do it with my friends. You guys probably do it with your friends where you just start bitching on a topic. And half the time you reach the end of the conversation, you're like, all right, we might have like got a bit carried away here. Like, you know, like people who eat cannelloni are not literally the devil, but look, I just think they're weird, you know? Like it's, you can like, you'll build stuff.
Right.
Yeah, you'll build stuff out of proportion so fast. And literally from this story, because essentially where it ended up going with the back and forward, which Grace didn't quite get to mention, but was the Barstool guys came back with this like a very bloody generous offer for the girls. So like, look, we're literally going to give you all this money. We're going to give you a much higher percentage. We're going to give you the IP back when the contract is ended. And we're going to knock 6 months off the contract so it ends in a year, right? Literally like the dream.
Stupid good deal.
It was like if you couldn't pay the greatest negotiator in the world to give you that. But just because of the pressure of COVID and them wanting to get the revenue stream going, they did it. Anyway, the girls came back and said no, which is just so clearly an instance of where like the relationship is soured and one person is just so stubbornly like, no, we can't do it. We can't work with these guys. They're not thinking with rational business brains anymore. No. They're thinking purely emotionally. And and this is where
because Barstool was also going to sue them. Barstool was going to sue them. If they did really try to shop the podcast out, Barstool would sue, which they're very much entitled to. And it got to the point where Alexandra, one of the hosts, was like, probably had this kind of light bulb moment where she was like, hang on.
This is where it gets so funny for me.
More money than I've ever made in my entire life. I don't get sued, and I get my podcast back in literally 1 year. That's not a long time.
Yeah. So
and that is a bloody good deal.
and she's the one who wasn't dating the exec. So she didn't have like she was just
The
like
voice in her
actually
ear.
yeah, she didn't have that voice in her ear. So she ended up going back to Barstool being like, "Look, the other girl is like not being reasonable. She's not going to go back. I'm willing to kick it off again like as a solo deal." And then Barstool was like, "Cool. We'll give you 75% of the IP. We'll keep 25. Done deal." And then as soon as the other girl realized, "Oh crap, this like they have the IP. They've got one of the girls. This is going to go without me and I'm going to be left in the dust with literally nothing." She was like, "Wait a second. Actually, I'm cool. I'll come back." And the other girl was like, "No, I'm good with 75% now, you know? Like I'm good. Like that offer's on the table. Like I'm going to keep 75." And now like
their relationship is totally messed
now the
up.
girl's relationship is totally messed up. The one who got offered 75 now wants to keep 75. The one that wanted to like completely just screw the whole thing over is now left being like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" Long story short, it's just
a total shit show.
It's a total shit show. And I think that, as much as I still want to talk more about this, just to quickly skip to what I will say is the moral of the story. Don't play a game of contract chicken with a company that's worth $500 million and a CEO who's worth $100 million. Because ultimately, like, imagine if a year ago you were working like just casual jobs, getting like 50 grand a year, like, $15 an hour. All of a sudden you're making $500,000 a year. You've got a contract on the table for $1 million a year. You've got so much potential upside coming your way. And then, but then you're like, "Oh, no. It's okay. We can get more if we just play chicken." Like, no, what are you doing? This is already fantastic. Like,
yeah. Also, don't tease the public with little tidbits of information if you're not prepared for the whole thing to go public. Because And let me tell you, if you're trying to deal in bad faith with a contract, you don't want that to go public, because there are so many people in this situation now that, for lack of a better word, have totally fucked themselves. They've totally
and no one will want to work with you again. Even if someone
Absolutely
looks at you
not.
and
So now you look at the Call Her Daddy. I just want to break this down for a second. You look at the Call Her Daddy girls, the two hosts that were integral to the Call Her Daddy brand. I don't think anyone would dispute that. Barstool definitely helped with the podcast. The two girls were essential. They have ruined their relationship to a point that, will it be able to recover? I don't know, but it seems pretty fundamental at the moment. Because as soon as you bring in money, as soon as you bring in that stuff, if you're not really respectful of the other person, it can get messy quickly. They've ruined their relationship. Barstool has lost their second most popular podcast ever. So they're up shit creek without a paddle. What I want to get into
just quickly though, I don't think Barstool's totally up shit creek, because the thing is that's what makes their play to me so dumb, is that Barstool has options. Barstool isn't like, "This is everything to us. We are nothing without this podcast." That's the girls' situation. The girls are like, the podcast is all their value. Sure, they could go and create spin-offs and that kind of thing that could do a fraction of it, but that's all in. For Barstool, to a point, they existed before this podcast was with them. They will continue to exist after.
And the girls had so much value, which they knew because they were in such a strong position to renegotiate, although they definitely didn't do it the right way. And now it's also like, you've ruined that future value. You've also ruined anyone in the future's ability to work with you. Like, you make it so difficult. How would another podcast network pick you up when it's become so public that that's the way that you've dealt with your past employer? Like, it looks bad.
Yeah, no company is going to want to enter into a contract with someone who they know not only just like blew off their last contract, pretended like it didn't exist, but also tried to publicly drag that company through the dirt. It's like if we've got like a friend and I see you lend that friend $10 and then be like, and they're like, "I'll promise I'll pay you back, Grace," and then they never do, and then they come to me and they're like, "Hey, can I borrow $10?" I'm gonna be like, "Hell no! I know what you did to Grace. You never paid that money back."
Literally, like, real life situation. Like, if there was a talent that I wanted to sign to Click Management, and no matter how talented they are, if I saw them shit talking all over Twitter or on stream or on the internet, I straight up wouldn't sign them. It's too risky. Doesn't look good. What if they did that to a brand that they got a sponsorship with? It would ruin everyone's reputation. And I think it's just not, it's straight up not worth it. And I think that is where the president, Dave, came off in a way better light than the girls, because you can negotiate hard. That's this industry. Everyone has to negotiate hard at some point. That's not easy. But what you can always do is negotiate in good faith. You can be honest, you can be straight up, and the other side might not want to hear it, but you can do it in a respectful way. And I think what they massively fucked up on was not doing it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to know is, what is the boyfriend's whole deal in this situation? And what's going to happen to him? Because beyond the girls being in a shitty position, he now looks really bad professionally as well. This guy is an executive at HBO. He has a full-time job in a global pandemic, and he is a leader. And now it's come out that instead of focusing on his own job, he's been shopping around a podcast for his girlfriend. Not only shopping around a podcast for his girlfriend, shopping around, HBO is a content business. They make content. Barstool Sorts makes content. He's literally shopping around a competitor-owned product, an IP, to other networks. It's so bad. Like, this is quite stunning to me in how bad it is. And he's shopping around employees for a competitive company that those employees are in contract. And apparently he was in contact with an agent that shared a Barstool Sports employment contract with him, and that's what they were using to sort of tee it off each other. There is so much of this as well that is so deeply unprofessional and shady. If I was this guy's boss, the boyfriend's boss, I'd be asking serious questions, and to be honest, I think he'd be out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That is bad, because what was his play? Then you have to think about, what was his play through the situation? Is he being a good boyfriend and just helping out his girlfriend? Or he's an executive content company. If he was trying to shop it to Wondery, was Wondery going to open up a new job for him? He was going to become an exec at Wondery and open his own, part of the business there? Was he wanting to become a manager for the Call Her Daddy girls and take 20% on everything they do? Like, it really doesn't look good.
Yeah, I also got the sense that there seemed to be some kind of rivalry between him and Barstool. Like, he didn't like Barstool, from what I got the sense, in which case it just makes it worse because, like, I'm sorry, if you, like, I get it. If you're someone like, I don't like your boss, right? I'm assuming he's saying that to his girlfriend and being like, look, your agreement right now isn't ideal. You know what? That's to a point. But if you take that to a point where you're giving your girlfriend such bad advice against her own self-interests purely because you know it's going to screw over the company that she works for, that's bad. Like, if that contract came back, like the most recent offer, some of the offers they got through, and he was like, "Nah, don't sign it." Like, Or was like, oh, I really stuck my neck out trying to get you this other offer. It's like, screw you, man. It's my podcast. Like, I can do what's best for me. You've got a stable job where you're an exec at HBO. Like, you know, like your career is pretty grounded. Like, for me, I'm going to take the best offer that I can get for what I've got. If you come to me with a bad offer, don't hit me with, oh, I stuck my neck out for you. Cool. You stuck your neck out. You didn't manage to, like, match up to the other guys. I'm going with them. Like, and I'm sure, like, there could be more factors at play, but it does sound like an element there very well could have been him being like, I don't like Barstool Esports. Getting her podcast out of Barstool kind of screws them over. I'm going to invest my time in doing that. Very messy, very shady.
Messy. The other thing is, like, and this is just purely speculative. I don't even know if, like, I should say it, but the fact that he's a 38-year-old exec at HBO, which is a traditional media company, probably pretty conservative, you know, is it uncomfortable? Apparently it was uncomfortable for him that his girlfriend is a 28-year-old, you know, girl that has a wildly popular sex and relationships podcast where the whole premise of the podcast is spilling, like, pretty candid details about their sexual escapades that they've had past and present. Maybe was he uncomfortable with that, and therefore there was some sort of larger play there that, you know, they actually didn't want to do the podcast, or Sophia didn't want to do the podcast anymore, and therefore they were trying to figure out a way out of it which would still get them paid. And I don't know. It's so messy. There are so many convoluted elements to this, and I just think it's crazy. And I think it's fascinating because you never get to see this stuff.
Yeah.
And this stuff happens. It happens all the time. Like, I reckon it would have been very similar situation with the FaZe Tfue contract, but not everyone got to hear the juicy details of how that all went down. You probably never will.
Yeah.
Whereas the fact that this guy, Dave, was so candid and dealt with this in a pretty stunningly head-on fashion. I've never seen anything like it.
I love it. I love it. He's just like, I just love when they just casually drop like little gem bombs that like I'm so keen to hear about. Where he's like, yeah, we're making like $100,000 ad revenue an episode. I'm like, that's what they make. That's what the big podcasts make, you know? Like, because I've always wondered, I see like, you know, the like all those giant podcasts, and I'm like, I genuinely wonder like what the ad revenue on those is, because like I know what a big YouTube video makes. I can tell you, I can look at a channel and be like, this is what they're getting per integration, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, full dedicated video. But I have no clue on podcasts. So just like hearing that like tea drop like that, I'm like, ooh, that's cool. Okay, that's interesting. That's
a lot.
And then like I'm running the numbers, and I'm like, okay, 54 podcasts a year, $100,000 an episode, 5.4 million a year. They're paying the girls $500,000 each. That's $1 million expenditure.
5.2.
Like, yeah, okay. I didn't. Yeah, it was 52 weeks in a year. I don't know why I thought. I definitely didn't think there were 54, because I am definitely smart.
But yeah, you definitely like get a feel for it. Do you know what was also really interesting was how much he kept dropping alcohol throughout it.
Yeah.
He was talking about the rights to alcohol. They don't have an alcohol released right now. It's purely speculative. Apparently they trademarked it a few months ago.
That's apparently big.
Barstool has released another alcohol brand in the past that's apparently just completely blown up. So it's really like, they're the sorts of insights that you just don't usually get, where the fact that they were so adamant on maintaining control of the alcohol part makes you think that like, if they were prepared to give up, you know, these massive guarantees in terms of cash, but they still wanted the alcohol, what's the value there?
Dude, exactly right. That was the part early on where I was like, holy shit. Because he was like, yeah, like first off, we came back and we're like, you can literally have like all the revenue and the IP and whatever you want. We just keep the alcohol. And the girls were like, hell no. I was like, God damn, that must be making some money. Because that podcast is printing cash. Exactly. What's in the bev? Like, and also like, not only like that must be making money, but that is a speculative bet. So like, even if they're like expecting it to maybe make money, the fact that they're willing to give away that much for the ownership of something that has a chance to perform well, that in itself is crazy.
It's fascinating. I'm so keen to hear, like, as soon as this dropped today, I was like, Elliot, we need to talk about this on the podcast, because I actually just need to unpack it with someone. But I would love for you guys to like tell us in the comments what you think about it. Ask us questions if you have any, because again, like, these are the sorts of issues that come up in this industry. And, you know, I've seen them frequently before. Elliot and I have had experiences with things like this, and rarely do you get to see the candor. But I think Dave, that guy, is fascinating. I mean, I feel like his following count's going to go up for sure after all this, because you just don't see that sort of honesty that much.
Nah.
And the fact that he was just willing to like lay it on the table, I don't think I'd have the balls for it. But I mean, pretty crazy.
I've seen his pizza reviews, but that's pretty much it.
Dude, nuts.
Yeah. Crazy.
I'm so fascinated to keep following the story. I mean, two sides to every story, and I guess we've only heard one of them so far, but yeah.
Crazy. Well, next topic is more internet drama, is Deji subbotting, which, oh boy, he's gone and done it again. Deji is like, he's just like, you know, it's like you're watching.
Give us the TLDR.
All right, TLDR. For those who aren't aware, Deji is someone you might probably know a bit more, is KSI's brother. A lot of you, if you know KSI, you probably have heard of Deji. Deji is his younger brother who, look, he's kind of a lot of the time like piggybacked a little bit off JJ, but like, you know, he's done relatively well off YouTube and financially. Like I think he's got 9 point well, you'd have to hence the subject of the story. He's got 9.95 million subscribers. And he's an interesting one because his content, like, far out, man. I just got to say, objectively, I look at it, I'm like, how do you have that many subs? You know, and to a point, it is largely.
You don't think it's good?
I think there are more deserving content out there, and I'm not even talking about my own. I'm saying there's a lot of great content out there, and anyway, long story short, it's become a bit of a meme because Deji has been like stuck for, I swear, absolute years, like 2 to 3 years at this point, at 9,950,000 subscribers. He's literally been on that point, like back and forward by like 10 or 20K consistently for, I swear to God, 2 or 3 years at this point. It is actually insane. He's been on the cusp of 10 million for so long, and every time he'll get a little bit up and he'll go back down again. And it's just like the biggest meme on the internet. So
he's not growing.
He's not growing. He is at an absolute rock solid standstill. Now, he's tried doing a lot of different like controversy things in the past. Like number one, challenging when like with the whole boxing fight stuff where he challenged not Logan Paul, Jake Paul to have the boxing match. Then after he got done with that, he started all the drama with KSI where he was like, KSI is a bad brother. He did this and that and that and that and that, and it was like, you know, going in on him because it gets his name in the news. And when your name's in the news, all press is good press. Your sub count goes up unless you're James Charles, in which case it goes down, but then it goes back up again. But long story short, and then more recently when coronavirus happened, he posted a video basically being like, I got coronavirus, because he knew that the first YouTuber to do that was going to get hella traction. But
dude,
like, anyway, long story short,
going too far for subs.
3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was, he, as Deji always is sitting at 9.95 million subscribers. Now, I will say, as a YouTuber, I cannot imagine the mental anguish of being stuck at that number because, and I can't speak for all YouTubers, but I think a lot of YouTubers feel this way. It's kind of like there are milestones. There's 100K on YouTube, right? Where you get your first little silver plaque. That's when you're like, all right, like I am a real YouTuber now, you know, like I'm making money from this. Okay. Then there's like
no hate to YouTubers that don't have 100K. Like I remember when you hit 10K, like, you were so psyched. But
but it's like you actually get like you get sent something from YouTube that's like, okay, I'm now like, you know, that's validation on me. Then there's the next step, which is where you get 1 million subs. Now you're like, all right, you know, like I'm on the platform, like I'm big time now, you know, like I've got 1 million subscribers. Like
playing
people,
with the big boys.
I will go to an event and someone will be like, oh, it's you, and you'll be like, yeah, you know, like it's cool. That's when you kind of feel like you're in like the big boy level. Then there is the like, okay, I've done it. You know, that it's almost like I would describe it as like, you know, you're playing a game. It's like, oh, you got 30% completion, 50% completion. Diamond plaque is like 100% completion, at least in a lot of YouTubers' minds. Like, obviously, there's a lot of different aspects to it. It's not like you're going to hit diamond and then just suddenly stop making videos. Of course, you want to keep doing it. You want to keep growing. You want to keep entertaining. You want to do all that. But in a lot of ways, hitting 10 million is a really big, like, you've made it. You know, like you've done it.
Yeah.
You've not only become big, you have become one of the biggest. And you get that diamond plaque. It is a huge, like, achievement. And
well, you haven't got it yet, so.
I haven't got it, man. Like, you know, like I can't speak to it. But
Elliot's like speaking, he's like manifesting it into existence. He's like, it will be so good.
it will be so when I get it. But, you know, like I can say for me, right? Like like the Fortnite blow up, right? Was like 30K subs a day, 30K subs a day, 20K subs a day. And then there was a real slowdown for me. And like around the 8 million mark for a while, I'm back up to like about 400,000 subs a month at the moment. But there was a while where I was down at like 30, 40K subs a month. And like you look at the timeline, you're like, oh my God, like this is like 5 years, assuming like I'm even relevant in that amount of time until I'm going to be getting near 10 million. Like I'm never going to do it. Like, it's just not going to happen. And it's crushing. Anyway, I can't imagine having that happen. Because for me, I was like, oh my God, like, smashing goals, like 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, 8. And then it stopped, And it's like,
Yeah.
I had the momentum. I was on the train. And then it's like, ugh. And you're like, oh, come on, man. I was so close. I cannot imagine the 9,950,000 subscriber version of that for 3 years. I think I would go insane. Now, what happened about a month ago is, keep in mind, he's been on that sub count for years. All of a sudden, in the space of 5 days, day one, 10,000 subs in a day. Interesting. Questionable. Whatever. He's at 960,000. Next day, 970. Next day, 980. Next day, 970 again, because people started unsubscribing to try and keep the meme going of him not hitting 10 million.
Oh my God.
And then 980, 990, 10 million. Now, immediately after he hit 10 million, the drama about him not having COVID, I think, came out, and that it being like a clickbait thing. He immediately went back to 950.
Oh my God.
Now, obviously, you look at that. A channel that has had 0 sub growth for the longest time.
No increase in viewership.
Suddenly gaining 70K in a week. You're like, okay, questionable, a little bit dodgy.
Things that I would think there, I would be like, okay, did he come out with a viral video? Did he do something crazy amazing? Has he changed up his content? Something that's suddenly appealing to a new audience, but it wasn't the case.
No, he'd had no videos go. His daily view count had not moved, but his sub count had literally like increased by like 1,000% overnight. So long story short, people were like, look, it's dodgy, but at the same time, sub-botters are really hard to prove. It's almost impossible to prove that someone's sub-botted. So, basically everyone was like, okay, he had 10 million.
Basically
he's fallen back down again, but whatever. That, like, it is the way it is. Anyway, the other day, a guy who runs one of the sub-bot selling websites came out and basically said, yeah, Deji bought 50,000 subs from us to get him over 10 million. Now, why did this sub-botter come out? Because and admit to one of his own clients, because you think that'd be bad for business? Well, in the most Deji move ever, like, I don't know, I swear, there's just so many stories of him just being weirdly stingy, man. Like, I don't know, I'm not going to go into some of the Simon stories, but anyway, there's some fucking weird ones about him, like, refusing to call the Uber and making their camera guy do it.
What?
Yeah, I don't want to. Anyway, they're like, I don't know. I don't want to go in that.
No,
but just like weird. It's like, dude, you're a literal millionaire YouTuber. You're gonna make the fucking camera guy call you the Uber? Like, seriously?
He's at Chipotle. They're like, do you want avocado? It's $2. He's like, nah.
Yeah, but like, anyway, but basically, like, trying to get out of expenses wherever he can is, from my understanding, bit of a classic Deji play. He got the subs, got over 10 million, lost the subs, and then he apparently went back and tried to reverse charge all the PayPal transactions to this guy who had given him all the subs.
Shut up.
He tried to reverse charge like $2,000 of charges. I think he got like $1.5 back. And the guy who did the subbotting was just like, screw you, man. Dude. And just put the video out there being like, this is the IP, like, this is the, like, a location IP address you can see that he ordered the bots from. This is the email associated with it. This is his parents' email. Like, sure, you could make a really big out there argument that he was doxxed, like his parents' like email address got doxxed, and then that person spent whatever, like risked $3,000 of their own money to buy subs while they were also IP spoofing from the same area that Deji lives in to, like, in some elaborate huge cover up. But, like, I think that that's way too long of a play. I think that realistically, like, because
we were talking and we were saying, because we were talking and we were saying that, like, one thing that does happen when you get an audience, and I see this because I have access to Elliot and Lannon's emails, is that people will think it's funny to sign you up for different things. Like, Lannon is signed up for, like, Christian dating services, or like Farmer Wants a Wife services, like these literally,
and a lot of really weird stuff.
And people will, like, sign you up for things because they think it's funny and they can figure out your email address. So I could see a world where maybe people were like, hey, we kind of want to bring some bad attention to Deji, or kind of troll him and do this to him. but I don't know.
Yeah. Here is why I'm
It doesn't look good.
99.9% sure that Deji did it and it wasn't a sub
Lay
bot.
it out.
Number one, yeah, sure. It's one thing to find your favorite YouTuber's email and sign them up for like christiansingles.com, you know? That's easy. But it's another thing to find a YouTuber's email, then somehow go on from that, dox their parents' email, and then risk, because it is still a risk. Chargebacks are never a guarantee on PayPal. They are very dicey. You're putting out $3,000 of your own money to try and set up this whole elaborate subbot scheme, and then like there is no guaranteed way that that information is ever going to come out. Like, if you're the scammer, you can't predict the guy that owns the website is going to make an exposed video when you try and charge it back. He might not want the negative press. That's the thing. If you were trying to frame someone...
I mean, it's noticeable when, like, he's gone from no subs a day to, like, 20 subs.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, 100. But this was, like, a month ago. And But they would know. There's no way to really prove that someone did it, right? So it's never going to blow up into a big story. If you want to bring negative attention, you could probably do that in a lot better ways with $3,000 and if you've successfully doxed someone, right? But like, so if Deji comes out and says, "Oh, it was a dox," it's like, what? You expect us to believe some random kid on the internet doxed you, then doxed your parents, then signed up instead of just using your email, which would logically be a much simpler chain to give. Instead, give your parents' email and then ID spoof from where you live. And then also risk $3,000 of it. You know, like it's just dumb. If you wanted to do it, like there are better ways to make someone look bad. He did it, and you know what? Like, yes, it is bad. But I personally am actually not judging him as like Deji's done a lot of dumb stuff. I can't judge him too hard for it. Would it personally be something I would do? Obviously not. But at the same time, I can't imagine the mental anguish of being that close to that 10 million, that goal that is like the peak achievement for so many YouTubers out there, and being on that for 3 years and just being like, literally $3,000 over PayPal and I can just tick it off. I can get it out of my brain. It's done. It's done. Like, that would like...
You haven't ticked it off. You haven't.
Yeah, I know.
It's
you haven't earned it. Exactly, which is why it would be dumb to do it that way. But like, look, it is in many ways a victimless crime. No, I don't think Deji's whole career should be ended. There are worse things a person can do than bot subs. Like, I don't think his career should be ended. I do think he's dumb for doing it. I think that he's even dumber for trying to like rip off the guy who he did it through. Like, it's like... God. Like that in itself is just like peak stupidity, because it's like, dude, he's obviously gonna want to get revenge on you, and you assume he won't do it because he doesn't want bad attention, but like it hits you way harder than it hits him, and you don't know him, and the risk isn't worth it.
Has Deji responded?
Not as of yet.
Really?
No, which would make it like you would at least, I feel
like...
Who
else has KSI commented on it or anything?
No. I think that, yeah.
Keen to see what happens.
Yeah.
Damn. It's not good. And ultimately, people that subbot, like, this is something that you sometimes see with much smaller channels as well. And usually there are ways to pick it. You can pick it from a channel that has immediately started growing at a rate that they weren't growing at before without an increase in viewership or a change in their content. If you change your content, maybe you're suddenly appealing to a different group of people that you weren't before that are now subscribing. But if you go on Social Blade or any of those websites, I think you can generally see if people have subbotted. It's difficult to really tell the difference. And ultimately, I just don't think it really helps. It doesn't really help you. Subscribers are important, and they're definitely a milestone for creators, but they're a vanity metric. You're not going to get paid more because you have more subscribers, and people aren't going to find you more because you have more subscribers. Definitely not if you're doing it through subbotting. And ultimately, it's a vanity metric. You're not actually helping the underlying health of your channel at all. They'll usually disappear. People will work it out. It's not, I mean, brands don't even
a-
care about subscriber numbers anymore. They care about your viewership. So it's not like you're going to be able to get more from brand deals either.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to do. It seems dumb. It seems silly. I think he did it. No, I don't think his career should be over because he did do it. I just think it's just a classic. It's just a classic Deji. It's a classic Deji.
Really?
Yeah. It's a classic Deji player.
What other stupid stuff has he done? I feel like I've never really watched his content.
We're going to need another podcast episode for that.
Okay.
And this no, like, I don't like hate him or I just think he's like,
no.
It's just like, it's like you hear about something dumb and people being like, oh, did Deji do it? And you'd be like, yeah. Like if someone came to me and was like, oh my God, like, you know, Casey Neistat made a fake video about him having corona, I'd be like, really? Like, nah, no way. That doesn't
seems
sound
out
like
of
a Casey
character.
play. But if someone's like, Deji made like a video where he lied about having corona, I'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds
seems
like
believable.
I'm like, that's on par, you know, that's on brand.
Yeah, dude, for real.
For real.
All right, well, I feel like that's a pretty good spot to leave it. Guys, remember to rate and review if you're listening to the podcast on an audio device. Subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And we will see you guys next week. Definitely tell us what you think in the comments below, both about the Deji stuff and the Call Her Daddy stuff, because I'm keen to hear other people's opinions because, yeah. All right, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.